Here we go, 1930s. I'd like to point out, I am an English teacher ultimately. I put an apostrophe there because 19 is missing, and that's the way you make a digit, or a numeral, plural. 1930s, classics. Well, you know, my take on this is quite different from others. There are some major names which I tend to skip here. Maybe I should say, too, that, maybe I didn't earlier, that I really think in the 20th century, the film industry took over where novels were before, where, you know, reading and writing is such a good thing. But I honestly think the 19th century was the age where the novels were the great works. You get into the... So I say that because there are certain writers which it would maybe horrify some other teachers that I would not talk about them. I'll mention them, but, well, for example, in Paris in the 1920s, Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway, Fitzgerald, these are American writers, highly respected, and Paris was the place to be at that time, I mean, in the whole world. And I can name their books, I've read their books, but I don't know if they're as treasured, really, as some of the other things. Well, you get to the 1930s, movie musicals. Once it was possible to put sound with a movie, why not make it music? And Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, that pair of dancers, you know, I rather think he's the most famous dancer of the 20th century. I would probably stand by that, even though he's from the beginning of it. He danced with other partners, but Ginger Rogers was his most famous partner. Top Hat, for example, or The Gay Divorcee. These are black and white movie musicals of the time where you could see him dancing with her. Really, it's wonderful. It's tap dancing, something we got from the blacks. You know, over here, you probably see the edge of this. There's that painting which I showed you earlier, and one of America's, the United States influences on the world has been owed to the African influence. Tap dancing, really, that came from the Africans. Busby Berkeley is a director who did those overhead shots. He was a real famous director. I referred to him because there was an allusion to him in Xanadu, that movie about the Muses. Our Daily Bread is not so well known, maybe. It's a movie, but I used to like to use the very end of it when I was teaching in public school to show the kids the dreariness of the 1930s, and also that utopianism, or that feeling of hope that people so desperately wanted at the end of Our Daily Bread. Also, to be honest, I like the kids to see the excitement of the people as they brought water to their crops. I mean, I had seen it as as a boy or a young man. I never forgot it. And then later on I found it. Lost Horizon, now that's a utopian work, where we get Shangri-La, I should say whence, which is that quick way to say from where we get Shangri-La, a paradise of a valley. John Hilton was his last name that wrote this. I mention that because I think it's one of the most famous utopias, probably, in all literature. It was a real big hit in the 1930s, it's part of that business of looking out, and there must be some better way. Another thing about Lost Horizon is now that you can see the Western world looking toward the east in a way. Shangri-La was a valley, a fictional valley, fictitious valley up in the Himalaya mountains. Well, The Razor's Edge, written by Somerset Maugham, that one also, he's an English writer. It's about an American who looked to the east, to India. That book influenced my life, actually. I was given, or I was told about it by a girlfriend when I was in high school. She told me I should read that book, and I did. I think it's one, if you could back up and look, it's probably one of the big influencers in my life. It's about an American who embraced Hinduism. But I don't only mention it for personal reasons. It's because there was that interest now growing. Later on, with the Beatles, I'll surely forget to say it, you could see in the 1960s, some of this you see again echoing. The Beatles turned to India and the fascination with the East. Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. The Great Dictator. Now, I worried about this. I still worry about this because I have such good German friends. Charlie Chaplin was Jewish, and in the late 30s, he spoofed Adolf Hitler in his movie, The Great Dictator. Charlie Chaplin, for almost 10 years, went on making silent movies, even though it was possible to make sound movies. But he believed silent movies were the better genre. Well, the first sound movie he made was The Great Dictator, and I used to show parts of it to my students. They loved it. The thing about that, though, is maybe in the late 30s it was possible to spoof Hitler, but very shortly after you could not laugh about that. And I have no idea of the effect that would have on a German audience. I honestly have no idea. The part that I showed was where Charlie Chaplin pretended to be speaking to a crowd, speaking in German. It's not German, it's mixed, but so anyway, with hesitation, I tell you about that movie. I think it is a classic. Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, he wrote his real famous books in the 30s, maybe into the 40s. They were not popular until the 1960s. I'm talking about the Fellowship of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings series. The Disney Studios in the 1930s, they came on strong. Mickey Mouse had been the Steamboat Willie, I think was his name at first, stick figures like. And in a sense the world has been Disneyfied. It was a student of mine that first used that word with me. They talked about the Disneyfication of the world, which I don't think has been a good thing. This attitude toward animals that they aren't, it's unrealistic. But in any case, it's huge. And Disney, once he got connected with Brothers Grimm and their German folk tales, we have Sleeping Beauty and it's a wonderful animation. Color came into film in the 1930s, and an example of that would be Fantasia. And I'm sure I'm forgetting major things, but so be it. I mean, this is a survey course and I'm going fast. All right, I'll talk about the 40s still today.